I'm Susan McLucas, and I run the Bicycle Riding School in Somerville, Massachusetts, where over the last 30 years, we've taught about 3,000 people how to ride bicycles. Riding a bicycle is a basic skill in a lot of people's thinking.
Come on.
If they don't know how to ride, many people feel like there's something wrong with them. They're embarrassed and ashamed, and they feel left out. So when they learn to ride, it's a great relief and a feeling of accomplishment. One of the things I really love about this work is how much it means to my students getting over a decades-long problem. In a few short hours, and sometimes in a few short moments, someone goes from not knowing how to ride a bike to being a proud bicycle rider. About half of my students come from other countries. More than half of them are women. And I also teach kids.
Left. Follow those feet.
Our air is polluted, and cars are one of the main causes of that. Pollution contributes to global warming, which threatens life on Earth. Cars take up a lot of space in cities, and many people die in car accidents. Cars separate people in their own little spaces. When people ride bikes, they're more open to their surroundings. They get exercise so they stay healthy, and they also keep other people healthy by not polluting. Besides, bicycle riding is a lot of fun. About 6% of Americans don't know how to ride bikes. 6% for women and 5% for men. But I have about 80% women at my bike school. I'm guessing this is because women are more willing to accept help and admit that they don't know how to do something. I've been a bicycle mechanic since the early 80s. I was happy to be part of the bicycle community because I love bikes and hate cars. But being a mechanic was not really a passion for me. It was the idea of fighting the car culture and saving the planet that really inspired me. Most of my students come from the Boston area, but I have a few people each year who fly in from out of town. It had seemed to me that the individual attention was important to people, and they would tell me their whole life story, and we would bond, and it was a lot of fun. But actually, group classes are fun in a different way. It's reassuring to people to learn with others in the same position. If you love bicycles and you love teaching, and you live in a town where there's not a bike school already, I really recommend that you start one. You'd be surprised how many people could use your help. It's such a pleasure seeing one person after the other discover the joy and empowerment of riding a bicycle. The more people that ride bikes, the more likely we are to save the world for future generations, and the more people will enjoy the freedom and pleasure of bicycle riding. In this section, we're going to talk about choosing a bicycle to learn on. A good bike to learn on has upright handlebars, and you want to have the seat down nice and low. A comfort hybrid is a good thing to ask for if you're going to the store. I like these Specialized Expeditions. They're very comfortable, and they feel like a hybrid, but actually with these thick tires, they're not a hybrid. It has mountain bike tires, so it's a little bit of a in-between. You want to have the seat nice and low so you can get on, put your feet on the ground, and have a little gentle bend in your knee. You don't want to be tottering up there somewhere, scared. So this way, you start to fall over, you just catch yourself. No big deal. On my fleet, I have padded pedals, but the pedals will be off when you're just starting to learn, so you'll be okay. So the handlebars want to be nice and high, so you're not leaning over much. You're pretty much sitting straight up. Here you can feel nice and comfortable, catch yourself if you start to fall. You don't have to, but it's nice to learn on open frame bikes, sometimes called women, but I consider them just open frame. I give all my students, men and women, these bikes. If you start to fall, you can, half fall and catch yourself and you're fine. Otherwise, if there's a top tube here, whatever you do that's not good, you feel it. A bike that you do not want to learn on is something like this, a racing bike with dropped handlebars. You do not want to be leaning over when you're learning how to ride a bike. So this is good for going fast across France, but not for learning how to ride. Another bike you do not want to learn on is a mountain bike. It's got straight across handlebars, which means you're leaning over quite a bit. We don't like to lean over to learn to ride. You want to be nice and upright. Once you can ride, you can decide. So your ideal bike for learning has high handlebars, a low seat, an open frame, and we'll take the pedals off before you start. Now we're going to talk about safety. The first thing to put on when you want to go biking is a helmet. That's the first thing we give people when they come here to learn how to ride, and they should wear it all through their biking career. It's also kind of nice to have gloves, knee pads, and elbow pads. Most of my students let the pads go when they graduate from bike school, but I recommend that my elderly students keep the elbow pads and knee pads and just make it all the safer. And anybody who's especially nervous, you know, there's nothing wrong with wearing knee pads and elbow pads when you're riding a bike, and if it gives you that feeling of security that you need, so be it. In this chapter, we're going to talk about setting up the bike to learn on. We want to adjust the seat so that your feet are nice and flat on the ground. You can even have a little bend in your legs. You'll put it up later, but to begin with, you want it nice and low. So to get the seat the height that you want, loosen the bolt that's here, assuming it's a regular bolt. This one's an alien wrench it needs. Once you get it loose, you twist the seat, and it should be able to move around. So if you wanted to lower it, it'd be like that. Then you tighten it back up. You might just have a regular wrench too. A lot of bikes make it easy for us to change the seat height by having a quick release where the seat post goes in. So these are made to push in and get tight, and then you just open them out and it gets loose. So you put the seat wherever you want it, and then you push it in with the cup toward the inside. If it feels like it goes in really easy, you would tighten it up, the two sides together, and if it felt like you couldn't even push it in, you'd loosen it up a little bit, and then you want it so that it pushes in securely, and that'll hold your seat wherever you need it. This is a good thing to have as you're learning. You will be wanting to change your seat height as you go, so it's nice to have a quick release. But once you're all set, you can have a regular bolt, and you'll probably be leaving the seat where it is, so you don't need a quick release as much. First, we'll remove the pedals to learn how to glide, which we'll talk more about later. It's much easier to start out when you don't have the pedals getting in your way. To get the pedals off, you put a wrench right in here where the pedal goes into the crank, and on the right side, you screw it off the way that you would any old mayonnaise jar, counterclockwise. Over here on the left, you have to turn the way you would think would be tightening it up, and it's actually loosening it up. That is clockwise. So you'll take the pedals off and just tie them up here on your bike or whatever. Lots of times the pedals this flat here is too narrow for a regular adjustable wrench, in which case you need a pedal wrench, which most people don't have. But if you go into a bike store, they'll be happy to help you get your pedals off. We get to get our balance first, and then once you have your balance, then we worry about pedals. In this section, we're going to talk about getting your balance. The first thing you have to do is find a good place. You need a broad, paved, gently sloping place, ideally. The slope, if you're working with somebody else, if you're one-on-one, the slope is optional. You can just walk along and push somebody. But the best thing is if you have a gentle slope. If it's too much of a slope, it's scary, and they'll always be having to use their brakes. But just a little tiny slope. We teach over here at the Powder House School. Sometimes when I tell people we're going to go to the top of the hill, they say, "What hill?" It's such a gentle slope, but it's enough to keep people going. Think about the brakes a lot in the early part. It's very important to, as soon as you can go anywhere at all, do a lot of practice stopping and slowing down. If you just put them on a little bit, you'll slow down, and you put them on all the way, that'll stop you. The right lever controls the rear brake, and the left lever controls the front. See how it squeezes and just stops you by pushing on the rim there. The front brake is more important than the back brake. When you put them both on, that's the one that slows you down most. But don't get thinking, the front brake is really good, maybe I'll just use it by itself. Think if your front brake stops suddenly, if your front wheel stops suddenly and your back wheel is still going, and especially if you're leaning over in a sort of a racing kind of a bike, but even so, the back wheel can come up and over and it's a bad thing. Don't at all get afraid of the brakes so that you don't want to use them, thinking of that, but don't ever use the front brake by itself. If you just get in the habit of always using the two brakes together, that's the simplest thing. You don't have to worry about it. So, how's it feel? I bet. To get your balance, you have to push off and then turn the way that you're leaning. You don't want to go straight. You want to see which way the bike leans or which foot of yours wants to go down, and whichever one it is, you turn the bike that way. So you lean to the right, you turn right. You lean to the left, you turn left. And I mean really turn, not just turn a little bit, but really, really turn all over the place. And the reason you need to do that is because you're leaning off to the side, so your body is here and your bicycle is not under you. So if you turn in the way you're leaning, that gets the bicycle back under you. And then lots of times you'll go too far and you have to go the other way. So you're always going back and forth, but you're trying to get the bicycle under you. And eventually, you'll still be doing lots of little back and forth. You'll never be quite straight, but your corrections will be so small you won't even notice them. Mysteriously over time, if you follow the bike will start to follow you. If you don't have a hill, you just walk along pushing the person from the small of their back, and you're not running beside the person, you're going regular walking speed. Whichever way the bike leans, you turn. The bike leans right, you turn right. The bike leans left, you turn left. If one foot goes down, you turn that way. That was long! Woo! That was great! We use the same techniques for children, but for those who need a little extra reassurance, we sometimes use a harness so that we can give them a little gentle pull up, and then if they start to fall, we catch them. Ride 'em, cowgirl. Oh yeah, here we go. Woo-hoo. Yeehaw! Okay. In this section, we're going to talk about learning how to pedal. When you can go a long way with your feet off the ground, you can put your pedals on. But remember that your right pedal goes in the right way that you would expect it to, that is, clockwise, and the left pedal goes in the way you would not expect it to, counterclockwise. When you get the pedals on, the first thing you want to do, especially with our experience of having the pedals off and reaching straight for the ground, try to put in your mind things are really different now. You have to watch out for the pedals. They're going to get you in the legs if you're not careful. So you need to reach for the ground in a different way. Notice how they go around backwards and nothing happens. So that's how you get the pedals where you want them to start out. Push off a little bit, then just get your balance. And if you feel on a good balance stretch, then put your second foot on. But the thing to keep in mind when you're going downhill, you'll get your feet on the pedals, but you don't need to pedal unless you're going too slow. Do a lot of just getting your feet on the pedals and saying, hey, great, I'm riding, because coasting is part of the thing. A lot of people think when their feet are on the pedals, oh, I know what to do, you pedal. And if you pedal and you're going downhill already, you might get going fast. And that's great for later, but when you're starting out, you really want to keep it slow. When you can get pedaling, you want to just follow the bike for quite a while. Try to do circles in one direction, circles in the other direction. You'll find that gradually the bike will just start going where you want it to. I don't know how this happens, but I know that if you follow the bike, it will return the favor and start going where you want it to go. Woohoo! Once you're riding around pretty comfortably, you can start thinking about gears. Gears determine how far you go for a pedal stroke. In a high gear, you go a long way for a pedal stroke, and in a low gear, you go a short way, which means that it's easier. You don't have to push as hard, faster and looser. in a low gear. So the reason that we want gears is because sometimes we're going uphill, sometimes we're going down. Otherwise, if we're always on the flat, we just stay in one gear. But when you come to a hill, you're going up, it's hard. So you want to make it easier, so you're willing to sacrifice how far you go for a pedal stroke to at least have your feet be able to move. So a lower gear will make it easier to pedal, and then when you're going back down the hill, you go into a higher gear so that your feet aren't just like totally fast and loose. So you're always just looking for a comfortable amount of resistance. You want it to be possible to pedal, but not too easy. So most of the time you do your shifting on the right, which is changing to where the chain is on the back on the freewheel. But if you want to make really big changes, you change it on the left. You've got 3 chain rings up here. Most of the time you want to be in 2. That's your medium range, going from 1 to 7 on the back, or whatever it is, however many gears you have back there. But if you want to be in a really low gear, you're in a really steep hill, you put it in 1 over here, and then 1 over here is just your lowest altogether. And if you really want to go fast down a hill for some reason, which I do not recommend, you put it in 3 here and 7 there, and then whew, you can really get going. You go a long way for each pedal stroke. When you're going up a hill, you want to pull it towards you, like this. And going back downhill, you pull it back away from you. And the chain is changing places back here. The chain on the biggest cog, that's your lowest gear for climbing a hill. And then back into high gear. You have to have the chain moving to make it shift. Most of the time you shift on the right here. This gives you your fine tuning. And on the left, not all bikes have this, but if you do have shifting on the left, that gives you your big changes. Most of the time you want it in 2. That's a nice medium gear. If you're going up a really, really steep hill, you might want to put it in 1. If you want to go really fast, you might put it in 3. Most of the time you leave it in 2. So you're always just looking for a comfortable amount of resistance. If your feet are going around too fast and loose, you go to a higher gear. If you're struggling to even move your feet, you go to a lower gear. And actually something like a little bit faster than once a second is how fast you want to have your feet going around. And if you're riding with people and you see that everybody's feet are going around a lot faster than yours, you might say, maybe I should go for lower gear. Because actually the good, bike racers and so forth, they let their feet go around a little faster than you might think. People think, I want a good workout, I'll really push. But we can get more out of our muscles spinning, they call it, going a little bit faster and looser than you might think. But find what works for you. So for general riding, you're not going up a hill, you're not going down a hill, I would have your gears on 2 on the left and something toward the top, 6, 6 or 7, or 5 if you like a little easier feeling, but something toward the top on the right-hand side. Most of my fleet has twist grips, but now we're going to show a different kind of shifting. I'm coming down. I want kind of a higher gear. Here we go. Oh, that feels pretty comfy. So I'm in high gear for going down. Clicking this thing here. And what the heck, we'll go all the way. Nobody coming. Oh, good. So here I am going up a hill. 6, 5. This seems pretty comfy. Could even go a little lower. 4, 3. The hill's getting pretty steep here. 2, 1. So this is my lowest gear without using the left, but actually, I'll be lazy. There we go. Now I'm in my very lowest gear. I'm even in the low on the left. So this is the lowest gear altogether. Now I'll put the left back into the usual spot and go higher for going down hills. Doo, doo, doo. Higher, higher, all the way to 8. Now we'll talk about some of the tricks I show my new students. Once you can ride around and you can go kind of where you want to in a general way, then it's good to practice standing up off the seat. That's good for going over a bump, or if you wanted to ride right through a pothole or over a curb or something. And you also want to be able to look around, eventually all the way behind you. But you'd start looking side to side, be sure you don't swerve too much. Little by little, you want to get looking back. To start standing up, you want to be coasting with one foot up and one foot down, and then just take a little weight off your seat. If that feels okay, go ahead and stand up with your weight on your bottom foot. So do it little by little. First just a little bit, and if that works, then you just stand up. Same thing with the looking around. You do it little by little. Okay, I can look to the side, that's not a problem. I can look almost back. Hey, I can look all the way back. And then same thing with taking a hand off. First just loosen your non-dominant hand. Then take it off a tiny bit, and then if you can go a long way with it off a tiny bit, then you can start waving to your fans. Once you're comfortable riding on streets, you need to know how to make signals. Most of the signals you do with your left hand. This is I'm going left. This is I'm going right, kind of like you're pointing over that way. And this means I'm going to stop or slow down. And you can also do your right signal with your right hand if you want. We're showing this on a street, and this is where you would use all these things a lot of the time. But if you're trying for this for the first time, you would want to do it back in the schoolyard or big open space where you learn to ride. Once you can pedal and you've learned how to ride in a nice wide area, see if you can start going in kind of a straight line. It doesn't have to be a total straight line, but we have a little area about 6 feet wide marked off with tape at the schoolyard. And when my students can go reliably down that lane, I tell them, okay, this is like our side of the bike path. Now you're getting ready for the bike path, assuming you can also look behind you, because that's part of what you need on the bike path. Well, the first thing is, whenever you're in doubt, just stop. You shouldn't feel like, I'm going, I have to keep going, I'll just make my best call and hope for the best. No, no, no. If it's getting a little bit worrisome, just stop. If anybody is riding so close behind you and so fast that they can't stop if you stop, they shouldn't be. So assume that everybody behind you is looking out, and if you need to stop, just stop if there are too many people. So lots of times you're most wobbly when you're just starting out. You know, it just takes a little bit to get going nice and straight. So leave yourself plenty of room. If you've got somebody beside you here, someone's over there, just wait. Wait until there's nobody close to you, and then start out. You can wobble all you want, then you get going straight. When people start to come, you can make your decision. If you feel nice and straight, you keep going, but have your hands on the brakes as you have people beside you, so that if the bike starts mysteriously turning toward the people, you just stop. Each time you start off, you want to look over your shoulder, because if there's a biker that's about to whiz by, you don't want to start then, because then while you're in your wobbly stretch, they'll be going right by you. So you look forward, it's nice and clear, look back, everything's clear, okay, now you go. When you can go exactly where you want and you don't have any troubles, then you can think about going out onto the street. The things to think about when you're on the street are pretty much just going as straight as you can. It's never going to be perfectly straight. Bicycling is a little bit of a wobbly business. Very often there are parked cars in the cities, and so you want to be far enough away from the parked cars that if somebody opens the door unexpectedly, you're out here. You might be surprised, but you don't get doored, as they say. If you're going along pretty fast and someone opens the door and you run into it, you can be head over heels, which is not a good thing. So ride out there It feels a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, but that's where people are supposed to ride. If you really can't do it and you're too scared, you can ride in close to the cars, but you have to go so slowly. Think, I have to go so slowly that even if I were stopped on a dime, it'd be no big deal. That's pretty slow. Don't really go into the spaces between cars. Sometimes it feels like, oh, there's like 4 or 5 cars, nobody's there, I'll tuck in there, it'll be nice and safe. But if you do that, you've actually got to do it as if you're entering the street for the first time. You've got to look back and, it's not worth it. It's easier just to stay in your nice straight line outside of the door line of the parked cars. Anytime you want to change lanes, you want to signal using our hand signals like we learned about. If sometimes people will wave you across, they'll stop and want to let you go through, and that's nice. But sometimes people wave you across when they really don't have the big picture. You're the one who's putting your life on the line, going where they say. You don't even know this person. So somebody waves you across, you take a few seconds to say, okay, is everything okay here? Great, then you can go across. You thank them, or not. If it's hard to take your hand off the bars, just give them a nice little nod. Sometimes you're going through, either walking or biking through a line of stopped cars, and it's hard to see through the cars to the other lane going the other way. So you've got to get through the cars, look, and see if there's anybody coming the other way. So don't just, go through because these guys are stopped. There can't be anyone over there. When you're coming to an intersection, you want to be in the middle of the lane, the rightmost lane that lets you go where you want to go. Say you're going straight. If there's a right-hand lane, you don't want to be in that. Usually you're on the right side of the street, but if there's a right-hand lane, you don't want to be in that. You want to be in the lane that lets you go straight, and you be in the middle of it so that nobody can possibly turn around you. If you're in a lane where people could go right or they could go straight, and you're on the right of it, somebody could turn right in front of you. So just while you're going through the intersection, be in the middle of the lane. If somebody has to wait for you a little bit, so be it. As soon as you get through the intersection, you'll go off, they'll go around you, everything will be fine. Don't try to hide off to the right of the road. You've got to watch for those car doors opening. And there are some roads in the city that are so narrow that there's really not room for you to be squeezed off to the right and cars to be passing you. So if you feel like it's that narrow, just take the lane, ride over so that no one will even think about passing you. Don't keep somebody behind you for 3 blocks. And every intersection you come to is a little time that you can squeeze off to the side a bit in the crossing road and they can get around you. But, don't feel like the cars have a right to go just as fast as they might want to, and you've just got to do everything to stay out of their way. You're part of traffic, and you're actually doing a favor to the whole city and traffic flow. And so if you don't feel like you have space to be where you want to be and to have a car go around you, just make that clear to the car by riding in the middle of the lane. And they can wait a few moments. It's no big deal. When you come to a rotary, unless you're just turning off on the very first street that's going off, go toward the middle of the rotary so that it's kind of like a little eddy there. In case you need to stop there, you can stop there. Everyone's going around you. You're just off in the middle. But most of the time you don't have to stop. But you ride around to pretty close to where you want to get off, and then you have to signal that you want to go off to the right, and you look back and you see if there's space, and you make some eye contact with people if they have to, and you see if someone's waiting for you. If it's not clear to you, you don't have to go. Just stay where you are. But when it seems like there's plenty of room, then you go off on your street. Whenever traffic is making you nervous, feel free to just become a pedestrian. You shouldn't feel pressured by the traffic, or if you're riding with somebody, don't be pressured because they think you're waiting too long. Tell them, please let me just make my own decisions here. When you feel like there's plenty of room, that's when you go. And if somebody has to wait for you a few minutes, That's just the way it is. Riding on a bike can be a really wonderful way to get around. It's a great contribution to traffic. Your bike takes up a lot less room than a car. It makes less pollution. It makes you healthy and everybody else healthy. And so the more bikes we have in the traffic flow, the better it is for all concerned.
Very simple story with me. I grew up in the Depression. There wasn't any money. The one time when I got up enough courage to ask my father, who'd been out of work for several years, can I have a bike? And he said, what are you and your sisters going to eat? And after that, I never asked again.
That was the end of that.
That was the end of that story. So then, college came and other things came, and I just never bought it. And now I think I've told you all the motivation here is my granddaughter who wants me to ride a bike with her. That's the motivation. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't, at this stage of the game. But she's an 8-year-old, beautiful blue eyes. She just looks at you and says, Grandpa, will you come riding a bike with me? What are you going to say?
I never learned how to ride a bike because I was very slow to do things physically, and my mother was very worried that I would get hurt sitting on the couch, let alone riding the bike. So I never learned how to ride a bike. And it's just in my whole life I tend not to orient to physical goals. I couldn't skip when I was a kid. I don't run when I see a ball coming. I duck. I'm just not physically oriented, and I've always wanted to see what it is like to try for and achieve a physical goal rather than an intellectual goal. And I just wanted to see how it felt to ride a bike. And it's been wonderful. I don't think I'm going to be playing tennis or anything. Those balls, I see them coming, I just duck. Can't do it, That's right. In this life, one happily settles for a lack of athletic medals. But I've fallen and faltered, my balance I've altered, and now I want bicycle pedals.
Yes!
When I was 6, my parents bought me a bike. It was a Sweet Thunder pink Huffy dirt bike. And it was the only thing that my parents ever got me that all my friends had. They weren't the kind of people who would buy me something just because everybody else had it. And this one time, they spent more money than they would have on a bike for me to do this. And so my brother, who's 5 years older than me, he would have been 11, tried to teach me. And we were going along, and he let go of the seat. I fell over the axle, or, that's what it's called, right? Went into my ankle, and it was one of the worst cuts I ever had, and I was just bleeding, and after that I was too scared. And then people every year, every summer, everyone says, I'll teach you how to ride, I'll teach you how to ride. And every summer it doesn't happen. And every year I've been thinking, I wish there was a class I could take. Here's my opportunity. I finally get to do it. I'm just so happy. I was feeling kind of embarrassed a little, walking with the helmet and the knee pads, walking the bike down the street. But once I got on and I started to find my balance, I was so glad that I came.
I rode a bike when I was a kid. I grew up in Ireland. My dad had one bicycle. There was 10 of us. And if we had an opportunity to steal the bike, I would steal the bike and go for a ride or do errands or whatever. And then I didn't ride for years and years. She tried to sign me up last year, but the class was full.
Did you?
And she
you
kept
went along with the
reminding
idea?
me, she kept reminding me, Mom, make sure you sign up next year, which is start. And I did, so she was delighted.
That's cool.
So I'm planning on riding a bike with my daughters, and I'm trying to get my husband to ride also. So,
Sounds fun.
yeah, so that's my goal. I guess once you ride once, you never forget.
Well, I was always afraid to do things. My husband and my son always ride the bike together, and I just don't join them. I never thought anyone could teach me. It's scary, So when I saw it, I immediately jumped on it. The first time I saw that there is lessons for beginners. When I saw that I can stand while sitting, I immediately felt better.
Yeah.
Because my husband has these very, very tall bikes. So I thought, you're going to put me on one of those. And like my husband did with my son, he basically put him on a bike and pushed him and
You're
down the hill, and he made it, you know. You think about making levels?
Of the class? What do you mean?
Like that you can continue with you forever and ever. Like